Hey guys, this is Avilo here from Team Legion. I'm going to be making a Heart of the Swarm beta video, review, to go along with the blog thread as well. But what I'm going to be doing is talking about the new units. I just got into the beta today, so I played probably 20, 30, maybe even 40 games. I'm not sure how many games I played, but it was at least 30 games or so. So I played with all three races just to check out the game, see how the new units are, see what strategies are going around. So I wanted to go through for all three races, my thoughts so far on the first day of playing. What's going on with all three races, what's good, what's bad, what should maybe be changed. And so yeah, I'm just going to get right into it here. So gonna go through all the units here. SCV, pretty cool, normal unit. But alright, first of all, the Reaper. In Heart of the Swarm, you may not know this, but the Reaper actually has the combat drugs ability or whatnot, which lets it heal out of combat when it's not being attacked or when it's just sort of idle. And they removed the building damage. It only has a little pistol now. So essentially, this unit it's almost useless now. Like, it has no purpose in the game because of a lot of reasons. Without that building damage, it sort of loses its function. That's really what you wanted Reapers for a lot of times, for that that burst building damage. But let's go through the races. TVZ, Queens outrange this. This is just going to set you behind in terms of your gas units and other units you need. Reaper builds, even in Wings Liberty, still are not that good right now because of previous nerfs to the Reaper, as well as buffs to the Queen and other things. So you won't be building Reapers anytime soon. But I'll come back to the Reaper at the end of this, after I go through the end of the Terran units. The Ghost. I'm mentioning the Ghost because they took feedback, I suppose. Blizzard listened, and they kept cloaking exactly how it is in Wings of Liberty, which is great, because if they had what they were saying that they were going to do is give it a cooldown. They were going to give Cloak a cooldown, and then your Ghost would uncloak. So this actually leaves late game Ghost usage in terms of multitasking and nuking around the map, things like that, as well as managing your cloak energy yourself, because you don't always want your Ghost to uncloak or whatnot. It's not necessarily good. So it puts the skill on the player. Like, if you're going to cloak and keep it cloaked for a battle, then you have to know when to uncloak, when to cloak. So that's more decision making on the Terran player's part, and it forces multitasking in late game with nuke harass. So that's good that they left that alone. The Hellion, this is actually, I think the Battle Hellion with the blue flame is my favorite unit. I would have to say. Mostly because it looks badass, but it actually, let me talk about a little bit of the functioning of this in the metagame for Heart of the Swarm. Currently in Wings of Liberty, Queens, Zerg in general is actually, I'm just going to say it outright, ZVT is imbalanced in Zerg's favor. I'm not going to be like these casters and other guys that try and pretend like the matchup's balanced, but the Queen buff, letting Zerg get those drones and fend off like all Hellion and Banshee type of aggression with only Queens and only building drones. The thing I love about the Battle Hellion is that no longer can Zerg only build mass Ling to hold off Hellion pressure and aggression, which means that all the larvae that would have gone to only drones and get them straight into the late game in 12 minutes now has to go to either some roaches or more Lings than they would actually want to. It's messing with the Zerg's larva count. They can't just as easily only make drones now or only defend with Queens. So this change alone sort of makes it so it's okay that the Queen has the 5 range right now. I mean, it's still a little iffy, but I like it. It's forcing larva away from drones because of how effective the battle mode is, and it's also, in terms of unit management, this adds a little bit more depth to Terran in terms of controlling your units, because the Terran player has to know, when do I want this in battle mode, when do I want it in vehicle mode, for battles and stuff. There's actually some tricky little things you can do with your if you're hellion harassing, having a couple in battle mode and a couple in vehicle mode, so that way the battle mode ones are tanking Zerglings in the worker line, and then when the drones run, you have some left over in vehicle mode to chase. So you can see how, there's some decisions to be made on what mode you have them in, because you get more cost effective depending on if you have them in the correct mode for the correct situation, and the good players are going to differentiate themselves depending on how they use the unit. The Warhound, this is the big one that everybody's talking about. I actually tested some builds to abuse this unit, and I've criticized it. A lot of people as well have that it's not really a mechy unit. It's sort of like the Marauder, except skinned as a mech unit. But it's even better in terms of balance, statistics, and everything. The thing with the Warhound is, it's actually sort of, from a design standpoint, it's good because, once again, just like the Battle Hellion, let me start with the negatives first. A, it's not really a mecha unit, it's sort of just another 1A unit. You do actually stutter step this unit some, though, because of the range. But A, it's not, it's not a traditional mecha unit. B, the balance of the unit, besides just the design aspects of the unit, the balance, it's actually really overpowered right now, and it's quite obvious. Just as the Queen making Zerg OP and Wings of Liberty, in my opinion, was a bit obvious for the last 7 months. This is something you can pick out. I played a lot of games today going like double factory Warhound, and it's just too good. It's just way too good right now for whether I don't know if it's the cost or the supply necessarily. What I think is, it's a combination of things. Blizzard is gonna have to, go on that. They're gonna have to check the health of it, the cost, the supply, how they want it, what they want to do with it. It's gonna be tricky because they seem to want to keep this unit in the game. So I would, it's either gonna have to cost more supply, or more. It's going to have less HP or something, or less speed. I do like the fact, the positive of this unit, just like the Battle Hellion I was just mentioning, in TVZ in particular, it forces the Zerg to spend larva, elsewhere. It actually, this unit alone forces Zerg to build spines and to build, queens and stuff. They can't just simply, they can't just power drone and get up to 60, 80 drones with just queens and just an evo chamber wall or whatever. They actually have to sort of make Zerglings or roaches or make the 2 spines. So I like this. That's the positive of this unit. In TVZ, early game, it's forcing Zerg to spend larva on stuff that's other than drones, and it's mobile. So unlike the tank, you're not going to be able to do a hit and run necessarily with the tank. So it's sort of like a new style mech unit, you could say, but still, it's a bit like the Marauder. The one thing my recommendation, because this is also a problem in TVP, this unit, it actually out DPS's damage per second on Immortal. I would recommend that the Haywire Missile be an upgrade. They could easily balance that out, just making that be an upgrade at the tech lab. Probably have it, or even have it require an armory to research as well, but still have the Warhound be able to be built at the factory, so it's coming into play in Heart of the Storm. So that would be my recommendation: make the Haywire Missile an upgrade, and then you would actually see TVP would be pretty. I think it would be okay in terms of Immortals against this unit or other units that are like the Stalker, for example. Right now, you can actually chase Stalkers down and kill them pretty easily with this. If the Haywire Missile is researchable or takes longer to get, and has the armory as a prerequisite, then you're not going to be able to, early game will be a lot better for Protoss. Alright, next unit, the tank. I actually want to mention this because tanks are not being built, mostly because of the Warhound right now. So it's sort of being overshadowed by the Warhound, which is one thing. You still build them. It's just that the Warhound, that's one other positive of the Warhound that I have to mention, is having a unit like the Warhound is sort of like a bridge to getting tanks a little bit later on. It's sort of like a transition unit, it seems, into the tanks or the Thors, whichever one you need or whatnot. I don't know. That can be a positive. Widowmine. Alright, I have a lot to say about this. What I think happened is Blizzard got negative feedback, or forum, like, balance whiners on the forums or wherever were saying that this was too strong, and what they did before they released the Heart of the Swarm beta is this has been severely nerfed before even going into testing. You'll notice that I don't see where the damage... It does 160 damage and 35 splash. And it costs 2 supply as well. That's the other thing. They actually upped the supply from 1 supply to 2. So, a couple of things here. And they even made it require an armory as well. So that's another nerf. So all of these nerfs actually happened before the beta was released to any of us 2 or 3 days ago. So this is another example of not letting units play out. You know, they're letting the warhound, they left it as it is. They're letting it play out. It's obvious that it's overpowered. I would recommend they do the same with they let the widowmine have a little light, have a little daytime, because this is a unit that could be essential to mech. But right now, for its cost and for its supply and for the time spent in the factory build time, this is never worth it. You will never. All the good players or all the people that understand what they're doing in Heart of the Storm, you will not be building these, except maybe like 2 or 3 in your mineral line with turrets for muted defense. But even then, turrets are more cost efficient than building widow mines. These take supply out of Terran's quote-unquote death ball or their army, whereas your opponent is building, they have their army, they're putting all the supply into the army. This takes supply out. So if you can imagine, let's say you build 8 widow mines, that's 16 supply out of your army, out on the map, that's essentially doing nothing and won't kill anything because of the nerf, the damage nerf, the splash nerf. The splash is actually very, very bad as well. This thing barely does any splash damage to anything. It does do friendly fire splash, which I think, is okay. They can test that, but as it is right now, you'll essentially never be building these because the main thing is it costs supply, which is not good in my opinion. Like, if they want to have this, it would need to not cost supply, and I don't know how. Like, I think as weak as it is right now, if it didn't cost supply, then it would be good. Like, then that would be something like, oh, okay, I can build some widow mines and it won't hurt me. I won't be hurt from building them. It's sort of like the catch-22 where you build Vikings and your opponent builds mass ultras and then you just sort of die because Vikings are bad on the ground. Well, it's the same deal here. It's a catch-22 for building these. You get punished for building them right now, which I don't think is good. It's obviously not good. The Raven, they actually buffed the Raven. They buffed the Secret Missile. It only costs 100 energy now. I don't know. It doesn't show it right here. Oh, yeah, it doesn't show it there. But oh my god. I believe what they're doing here is, since they haven't changed this in Wings of Liberty, they figured that they would use the Heart of the Swarm beta to sort of test out this change and see how it goes over. This is the best change to Terran. Even these new units, forget these new units. This is actually the best change to Terran, period, in the Heart of the Swarm beta so far. Because what it does, let me describe what this does for Terran late game, especially for TVZ in particular, which Terran is sort of getting raffle stomped in. But what this does is, it does a couple things. A 100 Secret Missile with taking 100 energy, you only have to wait for 25 energy now to cast it. Which means all of the situations where you build a Raven and you're sitting there and you're being attacked, or the game, the game is in a momentum stage where both players are attacking and defending, you can actually now sort of incorporate these into those games. The games where you would never build a Raven because if you built it you would die. Now you can actually build these, and you can sort of know that you will get your money's back, your money's worth, because you'll most often have at least one missile. You'll get one missile in the time that it takes to, as long as you have the Corvid reactor upgrade. That is the one thing there. So, and the second thing is, in the late game, like let's say that the game goes longer and you do get in one of those situations, TVZ, I'm gonna say TVZ in particular, let's say you get in one of those really late game situations where Zerg has that huge Corruptor Broodlord Death Ball with Infestors. You now, when you're at max energy, at 200 energy, you'll have a second Hunter Seeker missile, which is equivalent to having 2 Ravens and Wings of Liberty right now. And that is huge. That is a huge, huge fucking deal, because what it means is that's less resources need to be spent in Ravens. For let's say, instead of having 8 Ravens, you only would need 4 a lot of the times in like stalemate situations or late game situations. So it's more, it's that buff that Terran needed for TVZ. It makes TVZ late game more forgiving, and it gives Terran an option against Broodlord, Infestor, Corruptor that can actually pay itself off and be good. Like it's different from the Infestor, although similar. The Infestor has a spell immediately that's useful, Fungal Growth, whereas this is like the Templar, where it'll have a spell that is useful for a little bit of wait time, and then the longer you have it, it'll become more useful. The Infestor sort of is both. It's useful right away once it pops because of Fungal, and then the longer you have an Infestor, you have 2 Fungals and an Infested Terran or 2. So this, I just had to highlight this. This is the best change. I hope they implement this in Wings of Liberty, because this actually fixes TVZ late game. Like, I'll just say it. That's actually a pretty smart change. I recommended that earlier. A lot of other people on the forums and elsewhere were also recommending to tweak the energy on the missile. This seems like a good medium between, you know, nerfing the upgrade cost or, you know, buffing or nerfing anything else. This is actually it's just fucking good. Excellent job there. The BC, I haven't tested this, but it does more damage. It does 10 damage to ground, so that's a good change. It makes the BC more useful when you do happen to get into that late game and have a ton of BCs. I don't know if that would be overpowered or not. I don't know, it's tough to call. You rarely get into games where you have a lot of battle cruisers, but the games that you do get at least 15 BCs, those are tricky games, because sometimes the BCs seem like they destroy everything, and then other times it seems like they're really fragile and they just die to Zerg and Protoss remaxes on Stalkers and Corruptors. So I don't know, I think it's a good change. Alright, enough. Oh, and so back to the, before we go here, the Reaper, the Warhound, and the Widowmine. I'm seeing the Reaper is a let's put this together. The Reaper is a useless unit. The Warhound is overpowered and a boring mech unit in terms of, you know, design. Like it's just a 1A unit. And the Widowmine right now is actually very useless for what it does. I would recommend, as my last recommendation thing here, maybe Widowmine on the Reaper. I mean, maybe make it researchable, don't cost supply, and then maybe, you know, fix its damage or tweak its splash and its damage so that it actually can kill stuff and it's useful. So then you have like Reapers going around the map laying mines. Like, then that I actually heard that or read that suggestion from somebody on Reddit. So, but I think that actually sounds like a badass idea. Or even the Warhound. You could make the Warhound, you know, have the mine. Like, I think, to be honest, the mine, it's bad right now because it's the supply cost, the armory prerequisite, and also the other hidden cost is it takes up factory build time where you could have been building a Thor, tank, a Warhound, or a Hellion. So, you know, I'm just gonna say, for this unit right now, I see in its future maybe the Reaper, the Warhound, like Blizzard could do something and make it make these units more interesting. You know, make the Reaper actually, it's useless past the first, you know, 1 or 2 minutes of the game, and then the Warhound, that would be more interesting if it laid mines or something, and then of course nerf the Warhound, like make this researchable, nerf the damage, and then you have more complex mech, because you have Warhounds that lay mines, you have tanks. I don't know, it just makes sense to me. But Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Alright, now on to the Protoss units. Protoss players don't seem too happy about about their race. I would say the designers, their intentions were to add things to each race that would supplement the races. Like Terran, for example, got stuff to mech. Protoss is getting stuff to Stargate. Although I do have some criticisms here, and I did play a bunch of games as Protoss as well. I played all 3 races so far on the first day. I didn't just want to play Terran and give feedback on Terran. So first of all, the Sentry. I'm going to mention... Well, let's start out with the Mothership Core, actually. Because that has to do with the Sentry and the Templar and energy units in particular. This, at first, I thought, this is just a Protoss Queen, because it moves... It's sort of like the Queen, it moves slow. It is sort of like the caretaker of your Nexus, your hatchery, essentially. What I like is that they made the abilities cost more energy. Like, they balanced it. This is built after the Cybernetics core. It can energize the Nexus for 100 energy. Recall is 150 energy, so it's not spammable. And since you can only build one of these, this is actually, I think, okay. It's sort of unique, I guess. It's like the Warcraft 3 town portal, essentially. But it does add something there to Protoss. It's not imbalanced because it does take so long to accumulate 150 energy. Protoss is going to be, it's a good harassment thing for Protoss, and people were wanting Protoss to have more harassment. Purify is, I thought it would be imbalanced, but they nerfed the range down to like 7 or something, and it seems okay as well. It helps Protoss. Protoss is still, in Starcraft II, Heart of the Swarm, seems like the turtle defensive race to me a bit, and that sort of falls in line with that. And Energize, they made it 100 energy, so that you don't have infinite Chrono Boost. You have to actually use your Chrono Boost efficiently as a player. I think that's okay for now. In my opinion, from when I was playing Protoss, I felt that Energize should be 75 energy. Actually, I think they should even buff that, because there were times that I'm out of Chrono Boost as Protoss, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could. I really need to energize Nexus and get more build time or whatever. So, and that way you would have 2 energizes instead of just 1. So it sort of although I don't know if that would be too powerful. I mean, right now I think it's good how it is. It would also energize is tricky because that makes stuff like 4-gate and gateway all-ins a lot stronger. So the Sentry, Heart of the Swarm. How does the Sentry change with Heart of the Swarm? Well, since you can energize, that's the other reason why I think a buff to energize could be pretty good. Although maybe imbalanced, maybe that's why it is 100 energy. Is because there was one game I played where some guy did a 1-base swarm host rush, and I actually survived by energizing sentries to get like 8. Let's think about this. I had like 200 energy on my Mothership Core, and I charged up 2 sentries, so that's 200 energy. So I had 4 more force fields at my disposal, which helped out in defending. And that also means you can build less sentries if you have the Mothership Core out, which is pretty good. The Stalker, it's about the same utility, same unit. I should mention Dark Templar. Actually, I'm probably going to mention a lot of the old units because they're going to have new utilities that people are going to realize. The Dark Templar is going to be a lot better against Terran, in particular when Terrans are going mech. And the reason this is A, you can force them to use scans, B, you can kill SCVs and harass, and C, you can morph it into an Archon, which means you have the Archon is actually a really good anti-mech unit in combination with Immortals. Because it's so quick to build them, you warp in units, and when you're near the late game, you can warp in a ton of DTs or Templar and make Archons on the spot, and then Chrono Boost out Immortals. So the DT actually, it's sort of like, you can almost consider it like the new harass. It's going to be like the new style harass in TVP, in my opinion. People already do it against mech and Wings of Liberty. Like there's so many things against mech and Wings of Liberty that hurt mech, and this was one of them. But for people that aren't used to playing against mech, you'll actually find out that Dark Templars are pretty useful. Same thing with Templars for morphing and Archons. Templar is about the same. It's still powerful. You can energize it with the core, which is going to be useful because then you can put in a Warp Prism and go Storm Drop. Let's see here. The Observer is going to be useful as well, spotting for the Tempest. Let's go over the Tempest. I don't know if I like this. I think it's a little from. I won a game with it. I held off a Swarm Host build by using Tempest and Force Fields, and then I started massing Void Rays on top of that to deal with Corruptors. It's really powerful. I think it's actually potentially too powerful. Right now, it seems weak because people right now in the beta are not playing how they normally would. They're sort of like purposely testing the new units rather than doing strong builds that still exist in Wings of Liberty. But when people figure this, when people get to the late game in Heart of the Swarm, this is going to be too strong of a unit because it's going to, like, you know, it's just, it seems like 22 range is just too much. To be honest, this is also really, really powerful against mech in combination with a Death Ball. This actually adds to the Protoss Death Ball. It doesn't take away. This actually adds to the Death Ball. Having about 5 or 6 Tempests is an ideal number, plus your standard Death Ball. So yeah, I think these might end up being too powerful. To be honest, I like the Carrier better. The Carrier in Heart of the Swarm you would actually see more use out of it because Terrans are going mech. So I think the Carrier would be better than this thing and cooler. The Oracle, I actually only used this one time so far. But the Oracle, I don't really like it. It doesn't feel like a good unit. It's sort of like, oh, herp de derp, I just made it so you can't mine for a little bit and then I just run away. Like, it doesn't really add to the skill ceiling for Protoss. You don't feel like I just did something great there. I just did a force field donut and then storm stuff. I had perfect size storms. That perfect warp prism micro. Or you know, it doesn't feel like a unit that is like a WoW unit. It's just like he flew it in and did what he was supposed to do. Like, I don't really like it at all. The other abilities, Preordain and Revelation, they seem, I don't know, it seems like the Observer overshadows that too much. They're too similar. I sort of liked the Mass Cloak, regardless of how overpowered it might have been. But yeah, I would have preferred a Mass Cloak over the other stuff, or some other type of ability. Even Stasis Field on this thing, like, although Stasis Field would probably be too powerful as well. I don't know, I didn't really like this unit. Like I said, oh no, he did what he was supposed to do. Now the opponent can't mine. All right, the Void Ray. I'm gonna say this is a new unit against Terran. The reason being, warhounds. Warhounds cannot shoot up. Thors are only cost efficient when you have 3 to 4 to 5 of them against mass Void Rays. The Void Ray is going to be a key unit in the mid game for Protoss against Terran to deal with mech. And only people that played against mech a lot in Wings of Liberty, which is almost no one, are going to understand this. But the Void Ray is one of the key units against mech because it skews the mech player's unit composition one way or the other. If you have out Void Rays, the Terran player has to build missile turrets. They have to build Thors. They have to build Vikings. The Void Ray, even building like 1 or 2, forces that out of the Terran, and that's just, you know, it's a really good utility unit against mech for that reason alone. If your opponent builds 5 Thors, and then you just switch into pure ground, pure Charge Lot Archon, Immortal, Colossus, or whatever, and let's say they built like, you know, 10 Vikings, 12 Vikings, that's a win for Protoss. That's really good for Protoss. So the Void Ray, players are going to find out the Void Ray against mech in particular is just as good as it was in Wings of Liberty. It's just people sort of forgot about it because no one plays mech in Wings of Liberty. And the Mothership, it's basically the same as it is now. So yeah, let's go to the Zerg units. I think that's about it for the Protoss units. Larva, about the same. Alright, let's go to the Hydra. I haven't used the Hydralisk yet, and the reason is they still suck. They still just are bad. Essentially, all of their counters, Colossus, Siege Tanks, Hellions. Well, actually, these are really good against Battle Hellions because they outrange the Battle Hellions. But against everything else, they are still underwhelming, I think. And the reason is the Hydra speed, or the Hydra movement upgrade, which is this upgrade right here, Muscular Augments. They move the same speed off creep that they would on creep, essentially. It's at Hive Tech. Now, I'm seeing a problem or a common thing, or something. Alright, the problem is Zerg is getting so many new toys, and Zerg is the race that can sort of remax and build an entirely different unit composition from scratch after losing their army or whatnot. It's very dangerous to put something like this at Lair Tech, because then suddenly you have like Mass Ling Muta Baneling as a style, Mass Roach Baneling, Roach Hydra Infestor, Infestor Roach, Hydra Infestor, Hydra Zergling. You have so many unit composition choices that open up for Zerg with if this upgrade were at Lair, but I feel at Hive it makes the Hydra it's still sort of a Hydra feels like a mid-game unit that you would want to make, but right now it's quite underwhelming. So maybe maybe make this 15% movement and move it to Lair or something. But then that's the other thing. The Swarm Host is also at Lair. It's at the Infestation Pit. So these units, it gives Zerg a lot of strength in switching up the unit composition if this is at Lair Tech or something. But it also might be too strong. So I don't know. That's sort of my thoughts on the Hydra. It's like having the speed movement is what you would want to use to make the Hydra more useful for harassment and everything, but then that opens up a ton of new Zerg styles in terms of Roach Hydra and Roach drops and things. So I don't know, that they can tweak the Hydra, tweak the upgrade, or test it out at Lair Tech. Why not? See if it becomes overpowered. See if it becomes really good. See if it's fine with the other units. Viper. Once again, this is it. When I was playing Zerg, this was the other thing. Once again, it was this is a Hive Tech unit, and it is Hive Tech because it's very powerful. But I feel like the Broodlord, the Corruptor, and the the standard Wings of Liberty Death Ball is still extremely good in Heart of the Swarm. That hasn't gone anywhere. I feel like these won't provide the use that it's a cute thing to sort of pull a unit into your Hydra Corruptor Death Ball. So maybe these will be like a very specific utility unit. I could see these being used in late game with the Hydra, or with the Infestor Corruptor Broodlord Death Ball. You build maybe 2 or 3 of these things, and then you pull in key units into your army. Maybe pull a Thor or 2, or pull a Raven. Since Ravens are actually good now, you'd actually want to pull a Raven and kill it. Things like that. So I don't know. It's really strong, but it hasn't seen much use yet. I know I've seen a video of Liquid Chef using it. The Blinding Cloud is really good in Zerg versus Zerg, particularly because of the Mass Roach shenanigans. So I think that's actually. But once again, it's Hive Tech. So you have to get through the mid game into the late game, or Rush Hive, which is a little bit not standard. The Mutalisk, I'm going to mention this as well. It has new utility against Terran, specifically because of mech becoming more prevalent. Now, once again, if you're not familiar with Zerg versus Mech and Wings of Liberty, Zerg versus Mech, they usually want to build a lot of roaches. They do a similar 200-200 roach style that you do against Protoss, against Terran Mech players, which makes sense because Terran Mech is similar to the Protoss Death Ball, so that's why the roach is really effective against Terran until they have enough siege tanks. But the Muta is going to be a key unit to tech switch in and out of, making 8 to 10 of these, and then going to the opposite extreme, where let's say that you max out on roaches, and then you go attack, drop, suicide them into the Terran's mech army, and let's say that you killed almost all their Thors, and then you make a batch of like 20 mutas, 25 mutas, suddenly Terran is in trouble. It's a good way to fight against mech, but tech switching between roaches, mutas, and even hydras sometimes. But yeah, the muta is gonna make a comeback in Heart of the Swarm because of that function of tech switching. And once again, that's the scary part of, like, if they did change Hydra speed to be Lair, you have so much tech switching options. Even pure Baneling is theoretically good against mech. The Swarm Host. Woo! If I'm playing Protoss right now, I'm having a headache. These are extremely good against Protoss, in combination with Infestors to lock stuff down, and in combination with a Nidus Worm. That's the other thing. If you build a Nidus Worm with these, let's say you have like 10, 20 of these Swarm Hosts, and it's similar to the Siege Tank in how you're sort of like sieging your opponent, but it's a little bit more vulnerable, although it creates free units, and it has longer range than a Siege Tank in the form of the Locust walking to the opponent. But with a Nidus Worm, or with offensive creep from a hatchery and a queen, from a hatchery cancel and a queen or whatnot, it becomes really powerful, because you can, like, if you ever get into that situation where, the Protoss or the Terran breaks that wave of locusts, you can just retreat into the Nidus Worm and then have everything back at your base, and then rinse and repeat. Although you can do that with Infestors as well, which not too many players do, which is really good. But yeah, the Swarm Host is incredibly strong against Protoss in particular right now. Against Terran, if Terran gets enough siege tanks up, you can actually obliterate the locust waves before they reach your army, which is good. But they're still useful, even then, for putting on pressure. This is serving its function that Blizzard wanted. It puts on a lot of pressure to the opponent. It forces scans. It forces observers. I played a game. I won a game where the opponent sort of set up like a Swarm Host type of contain with an offensive hatchery cancel into creep tumors. But he was on one base, so then he died. But it's really good, especially if you snipe the observers of Protoss. That's when it's like, oh, what do you do? Like, how do you kill it if it's invisible, burrowed on the ground? The thing I don't like about it is it spawns free units. Like, against Protoss in particular, from the times I played Protoss against this unit, in combination with Infestors and Queens and the Nidus Worm and offensive creep and spores and spines, it feels way too powerful, because the Protoss is only able to survive using force fields. Like, they have to force field to gain enough time to get out enough Colossus or whatnot. So this unit feels extremely strong against Protoss, but we'll have to see if Protoss players figure out how to deal with it better. I did win a game against somebody that played with this, from doing a 2-base, like the typical 2-base Immortal Sentry into Mass Blink Stalker +3 timing attack, like 2-base all-in. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. It's really strong. The Locusts themselves might be overpowered. They do a lot of damage. They can take quite a beating. You'll notice strong against, well, everything. Weak against nothing. The Ultralisk. Burrow Charge is good against mech. It makes the Ultra a little bit better against mech. And since you're going to be seeing more mech, more people playing mech, I think it's good that it got an upgrade. From what I heard, I haven't used it yet, but it's a target. Like, you target the upgrade, you target the charge on the opponent's units, and it knocks them back. So we'll see. It's pretty much does what it does in Wings of Liberty. All right, this is a change I don't like. I actually played at least 2 or 3 games so far as Zerg against Terran, and I went for the mass Roach against mech style, where you get a lot of drops and you try and counterattack and things like that. They actually nerfed the Overlord speed upgrade, so Overlords with Overlord speed now move slower. It really hurts. It really hurts Zerg against mech, so I'm not sure if I like that. It seemed too slow, the movement speed, and that's coming from a Terran player. When I was using them, when I was playing Zerg, I had coming from the Zerg perspective, it's like, Go faster! I need to drop right now! I need to drop, otherwise I'm going to die! So that's what I got from that. I don't know why they nerfed that. I guess they are throwing that in there to test it. And then, let's see here, the Queen is still as good as it was before. So, yeah. I think that about covers everything. I'm trying to think, you know, the key things. Let me go over the key things that should be looked at, like, immediately. The Warhound for Terran and the Widow Mine. The Armory prerequisite makes it sort of weak. Everything else about it, the supply cost, the factory build time, and the preemptively nerfed damage and splash, like they nerfed that before beta hit. They should tweak that immediately and make it useful. And then the Reaper, the other thing, it's not useful right now. And the building attack, I don't know, it just sucks. Zerg, things of immediate concern to me that I can get feedback on. The Swarm Host might be too powerful against Protoss. That's from my experience of playing against it and watching streams of players dealing with it and using it. And it may be too strong in combination with infestors and offensive creep and such. And as for the Hydra, it still sucks as well. It's sort of, the Hydra and the Reaper are just like cuddling with each other right now because it's just still bad. And the Protoss, let's go to the Protoss. What was the concern here? What was I guess it was the Oracle and Tempest, the new units. I think all Protoss players would agree with me. The Oracle's a blah. It's just a blah unit. The Observer serves as a good spotter in the first place. These things are all sort of gimmicky. They're not exciting. They don't add to the depth of Protoss. You just, you know, you're going to do something with it. Just like the Warhound for Terran is a concern for being too powerful right now, too all-purpose or whatnot. It's the same thing for the. This is a concern also because it's sort of boring, sort of a 1A unit. This is like you know, you're always going to go and tomb the minerals. There's no micromanagement really. You just run it away, go and tomb, run it away, whatever. And the Tempest is the other concern because I feel theoretically this. When everybody gets a lot better at the game and more familiarized, I can't say that word. But when everybody's more familiar with the game, I think it'll be too powerful. And yeah, this I actually liked. Let's go over it. And since those are the concerns, the things that I did like, Battle Hellion, pretty damn good. Raven change, best change in the beta. This unit, the Viper, pretty fucking cool, pretty good. Oh, and for Zerg, the other thing that I remember, the bad thing, Overlord speed. Like, I don't know, that's just really bad. And then, yeah, I guess that's it, guys. So that's my review so far from the first day. I'll make another one of these, probably after play a lot tomorrow, and have more games and more experience. I'll be watching some streams as well, and you know, figuring out the game along with everybody else. So I thank you guys for watching, and I will be back tomorrow. So definitely, if you want to catch my stream at www.twitch.tv/avilo. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the review. Hope it's helpful. And yeah, Warhound pretty good. I'll leave it on that note. Peace.